Grab a drink, because this is one of the wildest HOA stories you'll ever hear. Picture this. I'm sitting in my grandfather's old cabin, feet up, cracking open a cold beer, having a chat with, of all people, the state attorney general. We're mid-conversation, just two guys talking law and fishing, when suddenly, crash. The front door blasts open like a battering ram. Wood splinters fly, glass crunches, and in storms the HOA president herself, heels clicking like a metronome of doom. She's screaming about violations, jurisdiction, and community rules like she's leading a police raid. Only problem? She has no idea who she just barged in on. The Attorney General, the one man in the state with the power to bury her in felony charges, is sitting 10 feet away, watching her commit crime after crime in real time. And to top it off, she's live streaming the whole thing to 3,000 people. Yeah, she basically handed over the rope to hang herself. But this insanity didn't start with a door flying off its hinges. No. This nightmare started 6 months earlier, with a woman in a pearl white Escalade and a taste for power. My name's Marcus Henley. I'm 52 years old, and after 30 years crawling through mud and stringing up electrical grids across half a county, I finally retired. My reward? The family crown jewel, my grandfather's fishing cabin on Clearwater Lake. This wasn't just property, it was history. Pop bought it back in 1963 for $800. Can you imagine that? Lakefront property, 2 acres of it, for less than a decent riding mower costs today. The cabin itself wasn't flashy. Hand-hewn logs, a stone fireplace Pop built with his own calloused hands, and a screen porch that sang a symphony of creaks every time you stepped on it. I kept it off-grid, solar panels humming quietly, fresh well water that tasted like childhood summers, and a septic system that could put most city setups to shame. Every morning, mist would rise off the lake, loons calling to each other, and I'd sit there thinking, Pop knew exactly what he was doing. He used to tell me, the land picks you, Marcus, not the other way around. And if someone wants your land real bad, you better ask yourself why. Because chances are, it's worth a whole lot more than they're letting on. I didn't know it yet, but those words were about to become prophecy. Then she arrived. Delilah Cromwell, though everyone just called her that HOA psycho. 58 years old, fresh from California, where she'd apparently turned tormenting neighbors into a full-time career. She rolled into our sleepy community in a pearl white Escalade with vanity plates that literally read, Rule 1. I kid you not. And this woman didn't walk around like a neighbor. She paraded like a general inspecting her troops. HOA badge pinned to her blazer like a sheriff's star. Doused in perfume, so strong you could taste it if the wind shifted your way. Her mission? To transform our quiet lake cabins into her vision of an exclusive resort community. And funny enough, within 60 days of her arrival, 3 elderly couples had already sold their cabins to mysterious buyers. That's when she turned her gaze on me. It was a Tuesday morning. I was on the porch, coffee steaming in my mug, watching a pair of loons teach their chicks to dive. Then click, click, click. Designer heels echoing off my wooden dock. There she was, on my private property. At 7 a.m., 10 minutes later, a piece of paper was slapped on my screen door. Violation notice, unsightly dock. $500 fine. Compliance required in 72 hours. Daily penalties will accrue. I stared at it in disbelief. My dock, the same one Pop and I reinforced together when I was 12, was suddenly an eyesore that threatened the community's property values. I figured there had to be some mistake. So I walked over, politely explained that my property actually predated her HOA by about 4 decades. You know what she said? Standing there in my driveway, hands on her hips like she owned me? Everyone on this lake answers to me, sweetie. Ask the Hendersons how fighting me worked out for them. The Hendersons. My elderly neighbors who'd mysteriously downsized last month after 23 years. That's when something cold settled in my stomach. By the end of the week, I had 3 more citations. My solar panels, my vegetable garden, even Pop's carved porch railing. Then came the heavy artillery, a certified letter from a fancy law firm. Blackstone, Meyer and Associates. It said my dock was illegally extending into community waters and demanded $3,000 in back fines, plus threats of a lien on my cabin if I didn't comply. I'll be honest, I panicked. These people had lawyers. I had a wrench set. But then I remembered Pop's advice. When someone tries to legal talk you off your land, go to the records. Paper never lies. So I drove to the courthouse, dug through dusty files, and found it. My grandfather's deed from 1963. Clear as day, my property didn't just touch the waterline. It extended 50 feet into the lake. That dock wasn't trespassing. It was sitting in the middle of my own property. And the HOA? They weren't even formed until 1998. Their rules had no authority over me. I marched out of there with copies in hand, chest puffed out, feeling invincible. That feeling lasted until I got home and found her Escalade parked sideways across my driveway, blocking me in. I tapped on her window. She rolled it down just enough to say, "Oh, Marcus, I'm just reviewing parking regulations. Might take a while." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about war. From there, it became psychological torture. First came the inspectors. Building code, environmental, fire safety. All of them anonymous complaints. They crawled over every inch of my cabin. And you know what? Every single one left saying, "Marcus, this place is rock solid." But the paperwork piled up. On record, I looked like a constant problem. Then came the smear campaign. She posted online about aggressive behavior from the man on the East Shore. Told people to keep their kids away from me. Fake accounts swarmed the comments, acting like I was some kind of threat to the community. Neighbors I'd known for decades suddenly avoided me like I had the plague. And then, at 2:30 one morning, my mailbox was spray painted, "Comply or leave." But I had cameras. And guess whose license plate got caught sneaking away? Hers. I called the sheriff. Guess who showed up? Deputy Chad Cromwell, her nephew. He glanced at the footage, shrugged, and said, "Probably just kids." That's when Pop's words came back. If someone wants your land bad enough, find out why. Her arrogance was her weakness. She went on local TV, standing on my dock, the very dock she claimed was illegal, pretending to be a concerned citizen, protecting families from dangerous structures. That's when my union brothers stepped up. 20 electricians drove out, walked through my setup, and publicly vouched for it as one of the safest in the state. Her narrative collapsed overnight. Then an old buddy of mine, now a lawyer, dropped a bombshell. The Attorney General's office was already investigating HOA corruption rings across the state. The pattern was identical. Hit older property owners with endless fines, force them to sell cheap, then flip their land to developers for massive profit. And Delilah's husband? State party treasurer, political connections, access to zoning and development plans. It all fit. I wasn't just being harassed by a nosy neighbor. I was in the way of a multi-million-dollar land grab. So I fought fire with fire. I documented everything. Every citation, every bogus inspection, every smear post. I built a file thick enough to choke a filing cabinet. And that's when fate handed me the golden ticket. One evening, I'm sitting in my cabin with the state attorney general himself, walking him through the evidence. Beer in hand, relaxed, finally feeling like I might have backup. And then the door explodes open. In storms Delilah, stilettos clicking on broken glass, screaming about violations. She didn't knock, didn't hesitate. She just barged in and live-streamed herself committing a stack of felonies right in front of the one man in America who could bury her under prison time. The look on her face when she realized who she was yelling at? Priceless. That night marked the end. My evidence, Sir Livestream, and the AG himself as a witness. It was the nail in the coffin. The investigation revealed she wasn't just harassing me. She was part of a statewide corruption scheme, flipping millions in stolen property. As for me, I didn't just keep my cabin. I got to honor Pop's legacy by helping tear down an empire built on greed. Now I gotta ask, what would you do if some HOA tyrant stormed into your home, demanding control over your property? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Because trust me, half of you out there have a story about a neighborhood dictator who thought they owned the world.